Hey Strat fans, what's going on? It's me, Colonel Strat, the strategy extraordinaire here, and today we're diving into the last race guide for Warhammer 3. So, these guys are the big bad Chaos Dwarfs. So, I've waited so long to do these guys because you know me, I'm a dwarf fanatic, but Chaos Dwarves, oh man, they're so more complex and just more brutal than the regular dwarves, and that's why I love them so much. They're very spiky, angry, stunty boys that can kill a lot of things. So, to dive into this race guide, I'm going to do Zatan, because as I've found, the other two do have some bonuses to certain units, like playstyles. Like at Drezoth, he goes for like Fireborn and Demon Metal units, and Astrogoth has a very big bonus to Bull Centaurs. So that's why I'm going to do Zatan, because he's more boosted to himself, but he doesn't really boost as many units as the others. So he'd be a nice, good vanilla guy, but he's far from being the weakest. He's actually probably one of the strongest, because he's just such a good melee lord. Alright, so let's go into the campaign details and show you all about these chaosy, stunty boys.
Ta Elgram an Grafti Vaut, Tarast an Azkal.
Alright, Zatan. See, I don't know what to think about them speaking their native tongue and having it be translations. But it is a cool touch. So I hope you guys brought a snack, because there's a lot of campaign details to go in with the Chaos Dwarves. They do a lot of things differently on the campaign than other factions, which is good, but it just means this is going to be a longer section than normal. So I'm first going to move this guy in here. So to start, what are all these symbols up here, I might hear you ask. So this is their whole labor economy mechanic. So the Chaos Dwarves are slavers. They take slaves and they put them to work making money for themselves. So this right here shows you how your efficiency is doing, meaning how much slaves you need for each province. So say that I take this settlement. So I'm just gonna quickly kill this guy, and I'm just gonna take his settlement real quick. So say we take this settlement. We can make it an outpost, which is making it a mine, a factory, which is pretty self-explanatory, sack it or raise it. Now we get a little bit of labor, which increases our efficiency, and if we raise it, we get raw materials, which is what's produced by an outpost. An outpost produces raw materials, a factory produces weapons, and then the towers, which are the main settlements, produce conclave influence. And I'll get to what each one of these means in a moment. I'm going to make this an outpost, because we need more miners. And then you see we get conclave influence for the main building, but right here we get mines, a strip mine, which gives us more raw materials, but also increases the workload. So right now we only need 100 slaves to make this go well, and we have a lot of extra slaves. So if I were to make this mine, and then I can also rush construction by spending some slaves, which is a really neat mechanic to help you power level your economy faster. And I'll show you how this works right now. You just cost 200 slaves, boom, and then look, we need 400 for the workload, but we're also making a whole lot more raw materials per turn, so we're going to be able to make more weapons and so on and so forth. So the system, it's like a cycle, supply chain. That's one thing I love about the Chaos Dwarves, is they make a cycle, they make a supply chain to make it go faster. And the towers here, they give you more conclave influence, and that's what they're made for. Again, I'll get into what they're used for later, but the raw materials are pretty much used for upgrading your buildings here. You see, the main buildings, in the main settlements, and in the factories, as well as upgrading like factory buildings to make more armaments. And now armaments are used to requisition more of a certain unit. Now I'll show you what that's for. Go into the Hellforge. this is what we spend armaments on: increasing unit caps, and also in the manufactory, once we increase a unit cap a certain amount, we'll be able to apply a buff to said units, and we unlock them by increasing the caps more. See, we get this, we get frenzy, and that'll apply to all of them. Now they do cost a armaments upkeep cost, so you'll want to make sure you get enough factories to maintain the cost, but you can get some insane bonuses like sundering attacks, physical resistance, immune to contact effects, fear. For some reason I don't feel like that's that good of a trait to have, but it's the last one. The war machines have it insanely good too, because like they get barrier, they get extra powder, which is a really good one, forge fire, which reduces enemy armor, extra reload, contact effects again, and then like, you know, they just have so many good ones like suppressing fire, extra reload, magical attacks. It's really good to get, but you know it does come at a cost, and it will stack up. And you know, if you can't maintain the cost, they will be refunded, and then your guys will go down a level. And they're already pretty decent for, like, they're already pretty decent stats. Like this Chaos Dwarfs warriors start with 85 armor. They have a fire resistance instead of a magic resistance, and they have contempt, which means they will only rout if other contempt units are around. So what that means is, because the Chaos Dwarfs utilize slaves for more than just cranking out machinery and stuff, they also have some slave warriors too, like these guys, laborers. Now these don't have the contempt trait, so these guys, if these guys rout, these guys won't rout. So that it helps me, like, because they're like a meat shield, you know. So if the meat shield runs, your main dedicated professional soldiers aren't gonna run. Alrighty, I know that was a lot, but I think I pretty much explained it. Like I said, you use armaments to also unlock new units, be able to increase the unit caps and apply buffs on them. Whereas the raw materials are used to upgrade main buildings like these ones, and I think it's used. No, that's just gold. But like you use armaments to upgrade that one. You use raw materials to upgrade main buildings, and these buildings too, some infrastructure buildings. So that's what raw materials are used for. And then finally we have conclave influence. Now, I don't have access to the Tower of Tsar until you don't get access until you get 75 conclave influence. But once you do, the tower is like, there's certain seats that give you bonuses to certain things. Like there's one on there that ups your raw material production and your armament production. So like you claim the seats and you're fighting against the other Chaos Dwarves to get as many seats as possible. So it's a lot more of a struggle against the two, because sometimes you'll find that you'll get a Chaos Dwarf that will just, you know, get a seat and you're like, oh, I have to wait some turns to usurp it, or they'll usurp your seat that you've been using for since turn 5, and you know, you're like, come on, man. So it's a struggle. The Tower of Tsar is a struggle, but then there's also military convoys that become available at turn 5, and you can tell kind of what they're for. So they're dispatched from Zarnagrund, which is here, and you can go anywhere to get like more materials, more slaves, gold. I think you can't buy armaments, you can sell them though, and that's another way to boost your economy, because you can send multiple convoys, kind of like the Cathay convoy system, but you can send multiple and really rack up the gold or the raw materials, or get a whole bunch of slaves if you're struggling with your slave economy. Now, that's pretty much all the advanced mechanics they have. They do have a pretty decent tech tree too, because it's cut into three different points: military, sorcery, and industry. I usually go with either an industry, because you're going to start with a decent industry, but you want to max it up. And then military, I usually go with with stronghold syndrome to buff up the to buff up the laborers and the slave units, and I'll go all the way up to hobgoblin quartermasters to try to, you know, make them a little better, because you're going to be having a lot of them in the early game because they're the cheapest and they don't have a unit cap, you know, so you don't have to spend to cap them. And, you know, you could just, they're 140 entities a unit, so they do a lot of damage, but they're very, very, very weak. They have no armor, low leadership. They're going to rout like maybe 3 times the entire battle. But they can get a decent amount of kills too. Alrighty, so that pretty much covers the Chaos Dwarves. Oh, I have to show you their commandments. So they do have some commandments. Their commandments are billowing smokestacks, which increases control and reduces plague. Higher quotas, which I always use because of the income and the armaments output. Military doctrine, which decreases the rank. And masterful architects, which reduces the labor cost and rush labor costs. But I always use higher quotas because, you know, you always want better ones. Now, there is these special labor actions you can use to get some conclave influence, control, or just some more money. And it helps when you're struggling with control, because you're going to have it due to the labor. You know, you're going to have control issues, but you can both build this building that provides control and movement range, or you can use these labor actions, or just, you know, use it as a labor farm. Just, you know, keep an army there, and just every time a slave rebellion comes up, kill them all, take the slaves back in, and you'll have more labor. Alrighty, so that concludes the campaign portion. So I will now show you some top tier Chaos Dowie army compositions. Alrighty, and here we are with a tier 1. So to start off, we I bring a bunch of orc laborers to start with. These guys will become your bread and butter for the first few turns, if not up to turn 20 or 30 even. They'll be your main force to send in first. They are your meat shield. They're not great, but for laborers, they're decent. They have a decent armor piercing. They do have malign authority, which increases their leadership when with contempt in range. And then they are expendable, which means that if they rout, no one else will rout as well. But they do their job. And there's 180 of them, and they have a decent health pool, so they'll be able to do a good amount of damage before the enemy, you know, can really do it. And against early game units, they're not too bad. Alrighty, so now we get on to the meat and potatoes. So I brought 4 Chaos Dwarf Warriors. By now, in the early game, I usually try to use a little bit of Chaos Dwarves as much as I can. And you start with regular Chaos Dwarf Warriors here. They're decent, not great, but they have a decent, they're actually pretty great for their tier. 85 armor with shields, silver shields, with fire resistance, contempt, charged defense versus large, a really good melee defense. They're just able to hold the line when the enemy, when the orc laborers rout. And in the back we have 4 hobgoblins. Now you'll get these guys pretty early on as well. They're decent. They're better than orc laborers, but I usually don't get the whole bunch of hobgoblins, like hobgoblin infantry, until like tier 2. So that's why I left them out and had orc laborers instead, because usually that's what happens. Now I did bring a Death Shrieker rocket because Zatan starts with one, and I try my utmost best to keep it alive because it's just that good. So because he starts with one, we brought that one, even though it is a tier 3 unit. And then in the back we have 2 Chaos Dwarf blunderbusses. They're really good. They have a really good melee missile attack, 57 armor piercing, and they don't have a lot of range, so that's why I keep them on the sides to do a whole bunch of flanking damage to the enemy, because they just do that much. And then we have Zatan himself right here. Oh wait, no, that's not Zatan. This is Zatan. His beefy glory. He's actually taller than most dwarves. And then accompanying him, we have a demon smith, a chaos dwarf sorcerer of Hashut, the new spell lore. And then we have an Infernal Castellan. These Infernal Castellans do some pretty good buffs to units, so I usually keep one in the army, especially when I start getting Infernal Guard. They do a whole lot. Alrighty, so with that, let's move the Castellan up there. Zatan to the front. Wait, no, that's not Zatan. Demon Smith over here and Zatan to the front. Alrighty, now let's start the battle. And now, in true Chaos Dwarf fashion, we will send our laborers in first to soften up the enemy.
Smash up! Let's go! Whatever you say! Nice best.
And we're going to be having our Death Shrieker rocket doing a whole lot of damage to them. Let's move our Chaos Dwarves up here. No, I don't need that. I just need one over here.
Hashut the Greg! Traskazan Wado! Arbufa Drash! Grevastrom!
Alright. Death Shrieker rocket continuing to do that. Alright, and our flaming arrows are going to do a lot of damage too. Okay, let's show one of these Hashut spells. They're actually really decent. Summons a magic hammer. Ding! Oh, that's a lot. We do some friendly fire, but don't worry, because that's actually very Chaos Dwarfy as well. Let's send in these Chaos Dwarf guys now, because our laborers are routing. Alright. Alright, let's summon a fireball of Hashut. Yep, I usually keep it on this fire mode because it does a lot more damage to Soki units. Alright, now our laborers are starting to come back. I'm going to send them towards the archers. Alright. Yeah, we just send them back in. The more they rout, the more we send them back in. Let's flank these guys here. Yeah. Alrighty, we're starting to deal with them now. Yeah, there we go. The Death Shriekers, their artillery is insane. That's one thing you'll find out about the Chaos Dwarves, is their artillery just slaps super hard. Alright. Let's make sure they don't do a lot of damage to us.
This is it.
You ain't going nowhere. Zatan can use a snare to increase his, to allow him to snare enemies in place. Alright, let's take care of him. Yeah, there we go. He's pretty much gone. And there we go. Alrighty. And that's a tier 1. So like I said, the early game, you're gonna have you know, a lot of orc laborers. In fact, This army right here is actually not as likely from many of your early battles, but your later early battles you should see something more akin to this with a few Chaos Dwarf units sprinkled in, and mostly laborers and slave units. But they will get better, and you'll get more better units and more Chaos Dwarf units as you unlock them further on. So let's go into a tier 2 now. Alright, and here we are with a tier 2, beefing up our army a little bit more with some more juicy Chaos Dwarf units. Now, to start, we have switched out our laborers for Hobgoblin Cutthroats. These guys, still a huge amount of entities, not as good of stats, but they're better, and they do have the Backstabbers trait, which gives them some more weapon damage if they are above 50% health, so that does help. And of course they do get the Malign Authority trait as well, so they're actually a lot better than Orc Laborers. So by this time you will have gotten, your Hobgoblin building started, so you're able to get Hobgoblins. They are the upgrade to Laborers. You'll always want to get them as much as possible. Don't want to send these guys into a death charge because they actually are worth something. I usually get the Cutthroats rather than the Backstabbers, just because of the extra melee defense. Helps them hold the line and serve their job. So I usually have 6 of them to make my beefy front line. Well, not super beefy, but beefier. They're still going to be used as a meat shield, but they're not going to be as meaty. They're going to be more of a shielding now. And then backing them up, we have some Chaos Dwarf Warriors again. By this time, you might be getting some Infernal Guard, but usually they don't come until like tier 4. So that's why I stuck with these guys, but you might have some upgrades with them as well, making them better. And I have 2 more of them too, so already they're going to be serving a better purpose. But the real changes come in the backline. So the backline here starts off with some blunderbusses, and this time we have 2 extra blunderbusses. So these guys, again, like the first time, they're really, really good short range. So you're going to want to keep them on the sides. That's usually what I do, is I keep them on the sides so that they can do some heavy damage. And then in the back, to complement my Death Shrieker, I also have a Magma Cannon. This is one of my favorite artillery units for them because it does so much splash damage and flaming damage. It's still got a decent ammo with the ability Hellforged. It's able to be regenerated by a Demon Smith in battle. It's really good, and it's got a lot of range too. So I usually smack that bad boy right there, right next to my Death Shrieker. Space them out just a little bit. Alright, and then the first thing that we'll adding to our roster is the Kadai Fireborn. These are like they're like a demon forged in metal. They're really cool looking. They have a devastating flanker like the Slash ability. They have Burning Bright, which makes them unbreakable. Blazing Body, which reduces they have some melee reflection and a physical resistance up to 10% as well in melee. The more people they kill, the more they get it. Kind of like bloodletters. And then of course they have the bound fire demon, means they will start to, because they're a demon, they will start to become banished if they reach low leadership. And they have hell forged as well as a hefty amount of fire resistance and some physical resistance to start with. So they're really good, kind of like a shock troop, I would say. Shock troop or fast cav type unit. Alrighty, and then we have our Infernal Castellan on the ground. We have Zatan on his Bale Taurus up here. Now Bale Taurus, really cool mount, and it gives Zatan a lot more mobility. And then we also have our Demon Smith is also on a Bale Taurus. Again, a lot more mobility for him. It's going to make him a lot better. And yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the composition. Let's get into this battle against the Beastmen. Alright, so just like when we did before, we're going to send our Hobgoblins in first. And they're going to distract the enemy. this time we're actually going to have our guys come pretty close to them. Alright. So we do reforge, we can reforge it, and it gives these Hellforge things a lot better. It gives the Demon Smith something to do. Alright. Let's do this massive hook here. Yeah. Yeah, buddy! Oh, that's so satisfying to see. And of course we got that, and the magma cannon firing off too will help a lot. Alright, and we're going to have these blunderbusses fire into the enemy. I'm actually going to have the Kadai go around so they can do a little bit more damage. And then Deathshrieker, Magma Cannon. Wait, why is the Magma Cannon doing that? I need you to fire. Is it going to open fire or is it going to march? Oh, no, don't need that. Yeah, open fire. That's why that's not been firing. Yep, and like I thought, the let's send these guys in now. Let's get him some damage resistance and then fly him in. Yeah, look at that. Those blunderbusses killed those harpies easily. We'll send those guys in there. Send these guys in here. And then the magma cannon does a whole lot of damage. And the Kadai are just tearing stuff up. Like I said, you can't do wrong with these Chaos Dwarf units. The actual Chaos Dwarf units do a whole lot of damage. The ones that are just going to hold you back is the Hobgoblins or any of the slave units. But you don't want to. You want to make sure you don't, damage your own units in the process too, because that's one of the problems with the Chaos Dwarf artillery. I pounded my own Chaos Dwarf warriors here so much that they're routing now because of it. So a lot of times I leave them off fire at will because, they're just going to fire at my own troops. They do effective work, but the friendly fire can sometimes be hit or miss. So you have to really micromanage your artillery a lot, or else you might get a lot of casualties caused by your own things. The magma cannon is really powerful because it leaves like a boiling magma thing wherever the shell lands. Let's see if I can show you. Let's see if it shows. If it even makes it to them. I don't know if he's gonna fire. No, he's not gonna fire. Oh, no, he is. He is, okay. Come on. Shoot, there we go. And then wherever it lands. Oh, well, it hit the tree instead. But anyway, I'll show you the next battle because I definitely bring more of them. Alrighty, so that sums up a tier 2. Let's go into a tier 3. And finally, we're at the juicy, juicy third tier. So this is when the Chaos Dwarfs roster really comes out to shine and play. So what we have to dive in here is some Infernal Guard. Now, I usually, by the very end of the game, you can get the top tier Infernal Ironsworn, but I usually am not able to get that many by the time of tier 3 and most of tier 3. So you end up supplementing it with Infernal Guard here, which are just as good, if not just a little bit weaker, just because of their, not 120 armor. But anything over 100 armor is kind of just overkill at this point, especially against the type of foes you're going to be fighting. So they actually serve the role pretty well. They don't have the ammunition that the Infernal Ironsworn has, but they are pretty good. So I usually have about 4 of these guys, and then on the either end we have Infernal Ironsworn, and this is the Immortals, the Regiment of Renown for the Infernal Ironsworn, and they just look gorgeous. They are insane. They're they're double-axed, really good, magical and flaming attacks, and they have the Undying Will, which gives them more vigor. I believe it's the more that they have that they have greater than 75% health, so they get more vigor restored. So that's always good to keep them alive. And then this is the regular Infernal Ironsworn, really good looking units. All right. So, and then the back line, we have upgraded to Infernal Guard with Fire Glaives. And these guys are more snipey than the blunderbusses. They don't do as much like splat damage as the blunderbusses, but they are more direct, meaning you're able to take down bigger targets better because you're able to focus fire. So they are better. They are better in that way, even though they won't have as much raw damage output as blunderbusses. So that is always a drawback. Sometimes you can mix and match, and just get some blunderbusses on the side, or keep these fire glaives behind, because they are the safer choice of the unit. You don't have to keep them out in the open. They'll be able to shoot over your guys. And then of course we have some Fireborn. This time we have 2 Fireborn on each side, fully committed to their flanking support role, kind of like flanking heavy cavalry. And then we have the big boy, the Kadaga Destroyer, helping out as a support monster. It's classified as a colossal monster. It's insane the amount of damage this guy can do. But again, he's a massive entity, so any type of missile damage is going to be his worst enemy. So you want to keep him moving and keep him in the fight. Alright. And then we have our Demon Smith on a Bale Taurus now, an upgraded version of the regular Taurus. And then we have a regular Bale Taurus just chilling, and then Zatan's on his Lamassu. The Lamassu is more magical gifted, so he has magical attacks now, and he has more mobility and a little bit more health and all that. And then of course we have 2 magma cannons this time, on all their glory. And then we have the granddaddy of all Chaos Dwarf artillery units, the Dreadquake Mortar. These guys, manned by an ogre slave, they do so much damage, and they have like a shockwave effect on the ground after they shoot. Plus they have an insane range at 450. Compared to the magma cannon of 380, this can hit anything in the map. Like, as soon as we open up, we'll be able to open up on those guys there. And that's just insane, So I usually keep those guys on fire at will. I will remove the magma cannons, and when they get closer, you take them off of fire at will. Alrighty, so now let's get into this battle against our hated foe, the Greenskins. And there you go, see? Already Dreadquakes have started firing. Let's see it. Does a lot of damage. Ooh. It leaves a shockwave behind doing more damage. Yeah. Oof. And then of course the magma cannon shot again. And it leaves that burning pile there that does some fire damage. And of course, the more we do, the better it is. Oh man, we're doing so much damage to them before they even get here. That unit is going to wipe. But we have to focus fire on some certain units. Focus fire on those guys. Yep. Ooh, there we go. Already those archers are going to fire, are going to get away, and then the squig herd's going to charge aimlessly at us. We already routed a couple units before they even made it to us. Like I said, the Chaos Dwarf artillery is just insane. The amount of damage they can do. Alright, let's see if we can hit these black orcs. Yep, we did. And that's going to do a lot of damage to them. Soften them up before they get to our lines. And when they get to our lines, we're going to be able to do a lot more damage as well. We got to keep them away from the missile lines, though. Alright, fire glaives, fire. See, like I said, they were kind of like more snipey. They're like, they even have like a laser sound effect, which is kind of silly, but it's cool at the same time. Alright, let's do the Flames of Asgore. We'll do that on the black orcs coming in. That way we can do more damage to them. And we'll do a breath attack on that as well. There we go. Black orcs are pretty much gone. Sending our Fireborn on both of these sides. Where's the Kadai Destroyer? There he is. Send him in. Get him down there. Get our Bale Taurus down over here as well. Alright, we're gonna have to fire on these guys. Again, you want to try to keep the artillery firing at places that are far away from anything. Let's have them chase them down. In fact, let's get down there. Yeah, let's get this guy in through the flank here. Get these guys through the flank as well. And there we go. We dealt with them. And we do still do a pretty good amount of damage with the fire glaives, even though it's only 40. It's not 57. Combined with that and the Dreadquake mortars, it just does so much, because we got 200 kills with one Dreadquake, 240 with a magma cannon. Like, you see where the damage is coming from. Like, they have very, very powerful guns. Like, the Dreadquake mortar alone can do so much damage, and like there's a reason why there's so many doom stacks of the mortar itself, because like, look at that unit was just destroyed. Nothing kaput. There's nothing left of it, you know. Like, the Gadai Destroyer is fun and all, but it's just a colossal monster, you know? It's not going to wipe them out. It's going to take some time to wipe them out. It's not going to just, you know, boom, they're gone. The Dreadquake mortar is boom, you're gone, you know? I mean, this thing's really, really cool and really powerful, but the Dreadquake mortar is like the cream of the crop. You need to have some of them in your end game army, or else you're going to have a tough time. It's like, look at that. That's just insane. Alrighty, so that does it with our army compositions. Now I'm going to stop. Orgasming over all this. So let's wrap this up now, shall we? Hashut. So that concludes my Chaos Dwarf guide. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as I do making it. You know, I hope you guys can see just how powerful and like mind-blowing these Chaos Dwarves can get, with how insane their artillery is and how insane their units can be, with just how much damage they can take and deal out. The fact that they have so many so much heavy reliance on like slave units early on, kind of balances them out so they're not super overpowered. But if you let them get overpowered, then they're just going to steamroll you entirely, you know. By the time you reach endgame, you won't need any slave units. You'll have all your armies be high-class Chaos Dwarf units with all the upgrades on, and it's gonna steamroll everything. And it's that type of gameplay that just makes it so captivating, I feel, and why I think it's such a great race to cover. And that's why I saved them for last, because not only were they the latest one to come out before the new DLC that's coming out soon, they are the latest faction, like the latest race, and they're really, really cool as well. I've waited for them for a long time, and I'm glad that I was finally able to show you why I love them so much. Alrighty, guys, so without further ado, I thank you guys for watching my video, watching my guide, and I wish you guys all the best of luck, and to bring glory to Hashut's name in your own Chaos Dwarf campaigns. To either, whether you want to blow them up as Drazoth, chew them up as Astrogoth, or just laugh at them while they're dying like Zatan. I wish you all the luck in your campaigns, friends. And without further ado, keep it strategic, Strat fans. Colonel out.